So let's get on to the next session. I'm particularly excited about the next spot. It's focusing on disrupting payments, led by Mastercard. Payments has very much gone under the radar over the sort of recent surge in ClaimsTech solutions. There's been much less focus on payments than on IFNOL or assessment or validation. And actually, very little in the claims process is more important than the final payment, the customer or supplier. It's the final seal on the insurance contract, and it's probably the most important thing that the customer experiences. And all too often, we hear still stories about, well, you'll get your check in 7 days or you'll get your payment in 14 days with no real certainty about when it will take place because of the complexity of the payments process. So it's absolutely fantastic to hear about an amazing brand like Mastercard who are addressing that by bringing the latest thought leadership to their payment solutions. I'm going to run a short video now showing how they've been bringing improvements to the American claims market with partners over there, which are really interesting case studies. And then we'll go on to hear from Ruth Polly-Blanks, who is Mastercard's insurance lead in the UK.
Allstate has been helping families protect their assets for over 80 years. And now, by partnering with Mastercard to use its payments technology service, Allstate can pay claims in near real time. Introducing Quick Card Pay from Allstate. Simply give your claims adjuster the desired debit card number, and after the claim is approved, funds are deposited to your bank account, typically within seconds. Quick Card Pay is already making a real difference out in the world.
Last fall, I was driving home from work and I got rear-ended. I mean, I wasn't hurt, but my rear bumper wasn't so lucky. But the real problem was that in 2 days, I was supposed to drive out to meet my girlfriend's family for the first time. So I needed this fixed, like immediately. I used the app to take pictures and an adjuster had an estimate ready for my approved claim hours later. He asked if I wanted to use Quick Card Pay, so I said yes and gave him my debit card number. I checked a few seconds later and the money was in my account. I did get the car fixed in time, thanks to the whole process being so seamless.
I'd never seen winds so strong in my life. Trees were bent over sideways, so I wasn't surprised when I saw that all of these branches had fallen onto our roof. I filed a claim right away because I was afraid the snow would melt and leak into the attic. Thanks to Quick Card Pay, we got our payment days before the rest of the neighborhood did, which meant I could schedule repairs before the local roofers got overbooked. A few days later, our roof was completely fixed.
What you don't realize about natural disasters is that there might not be an address to mail a check to. A policyholder and his family could be stranded in an emergency shelter somewhere. With Quick Card Pay, I can get money for food, hotels, and clothing to as many customers as possible, quickly, typically within seconds, with Allstate sending funds right into their bank accounts. Breakthrough services like Quick Card Pay are just one of the many reasons why customers know they're in good hands with Allstate.
That was fascinating. Really interesting insight into how the payment solutions could work in practice or are working in practice in the US. I'd like to welcome you, Ruth, to I Love Claims. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm here despite homeschooling and all the other things going on, and I'm very pleased to be.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, we really appreciate your time, Ruth. So let's get straight into it. And I think the question that's really on a lot of people's lips is why insurance and insurance claims specifically for Mastercard, and what makes you think you can create value in this sector?
Yeah, it's the first question most insurers ask when we're speaking. I came from the insurance sector, so I've been in insurance for 20 years. And really, if you look at what Mastercard is, we've successfully built the world's fastest payment network, delivering on a vision of a world beyond cash. And in doing that, we've really struck 4 key capabilities, which is the ability to facilitate collaboration between organizations who otherwise wouldn't ordinarily interact or work together. We're able to provide and set and arbitrate the standards the terms of engagement, and to do that at scale. We are focused on financial inclusion as an organisation and giving access to payment systems for all. And ultimately, we provide a level of trust, which means that if you're operating through our network and partners, you don't have to worry about poor outcomes.
That's really interesting. I think, and it resonates with a lot of what we'll see today, in the sense that we need to look outwards in insurance and insurance claims and learn from other sectors, other industries, in terms of how they're managing things, and payments central to so many things in technology and so many things in financial services. So it'd be great to see how you leverage that. You're already actively working in the sector. Can you share early observations on how it's going and maybe some embryonic success stories?
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to the previous point, you have this global network and these capabilities, and that's relevant for insurance in three key ways. One is that we have the ability to make insurance payments much better. Secondly, we can utilise insurance in new ways in other verticals in which we work. And thirdly, we can be an enabler for our insurance partners to innovate and to embrace innovation and stay relevant. And we do that through all sorts of engagements, but mainly just through collaborating with insurers. So in response to your question about examples, Mastercard has probably in the region of 500 capabilities that would be relevant in some way to an insurance organisation. And if you look at an insurer like Allstate, where we've embedded Quick Card for emergency payments, they've seen customer satisfaction increase 76%, claims costs reduced by around 50%, because of the ability to move money to claimants almost instantaneously. And more broadly, if you look at something like the rise of parametric insurance, which is a huge topic at the moment, parametrics only work if you can move the money at the end of that binary automated decision instantaneously.
Ruth, I know, sorry to interrupt. I know you're a bit of an expert in this field, so I'm going to be cheeky and say a lot of people may not be aware of what parametric insurance is to the level that you do. Can you just give us a quick summary of what parametric insurance is and how you interact with it?
Absolutely. Parametric insurance is basically where a data point, a pre-agreed neutral data point, determines when there's been a loss. So that could be, in the example I gave earlier, it could be that you have a travel product, a flight delay product, where the arbitrary data point is simply the flight information. If the flight is delayed, then you receive a payment. But it can be much more sophisticated. We're speaking to partners about the use of Mastercard transactional data to underwrite parametric products that focus on business interruption where there's been no material damage, which, as you know, is a very hot topic in our industry at the moment. But again, it not just takes up the need for the loss adjustment, understanding the risk, it promotes transparency, it's good for customers. It also means that insurers are settling claims almost instantaneously without all the associated costs of having a claims book open.
Yeah, so it's, in the old days, we'd have called that agreed value policies, where actually you agree how much you're going to get in the event of a loss. But I guess what you're doing is facilitating a much more sophisticated solution using the data of the insurers and facilitating that instant payment process. That sounds fascinating.
Potentially, really.
Yeah. You also mentioned financial inclusivity there, Ruth. One of the things that I think perhaps concerns people a little bit is when we start getting into digital payments and sophisticated payment solutions, which albeit manifest themselves in very simple, quick outcomes. If people aren't tech savvy, old people who maybe aren't used to working in technological solutions, are they going to be disenfranchised from payment solutions if we move into these more digital solutions?
I don't think so. In the same way that consumers have embraced something like the iPhone, you don't necessarily need to know how it all works. You just need to base it on your own experience. And the thing about Mastercard and payment solutions that we're speaking to insurers about effectively they're API ready solutions, i.e. you plug them in and they go. You don't necessarily need to know all of the stuff that sits behind it. And actually it can relieve a lot of the responsibility of, say, handling personal data. And again, it's when it's for the customer and it's easily accessible, I don't think it's going to disenfranchise those in the industry. I think most claims professionals I've spoken to over the last 20 years are the people that champion the customer and getting the money to the customer. So I'd like to think that they would embrace these technologies.
Yeah, definitely. You talked about the parametric insurance and Allstate. One of the things that we've talked about previously is when people are in crisis situations like a flood, for example, or a catastrophe where they haven't got access to their financial, to their cards or their accounts or anything like that. How would the solution operate in that environment?
Well, Mastercard has a host of solutions. Money can be moved in lots of different ways. It doesn't have to go to a card. The card is in the name, but that's not the full regime of what we offer. There is the ability to move money to digital wallets and via something called VCN, which is a virtual card number, to an ATM, to a card, to a bank account. And we think that, customers being able to select the rails on which they receive their payments is really important as well.
Brilliant. I did notice somewhere in the press that you were working with Davies on a VCN solution, and I think that looked really exciting and leveraging that kind of real opportunity to help people out in crises. So I thought that was great. It's great to hear about, and Davies, an organisation that we work with actively as well, which is fantastic. Is there an industry where you guys have gone into that bears a close similarity to insurance in terms of where they were at the start of your journey and where they are now? Is there an industry that can give us a feel for what we've got in store, if you like?
Well, I'd say that there's no industry like insurance, obviously. That said, if you take the use case of how Mastercard has disrupted and innovated in the global travel sector, whereby, for example, if you're booking your holiday through an online travel agent, an OTA, the way the money would have moved through that flow traditionally would have been very inefficient and would lack a lot of transparency, making reconciliation very difficult. Using the VCN solution that you mentioned, money can be displaced immediately to their OTA, but also through their supply chain. So to the hotel, to drivers, to airlines, to excursion providers. And, it has the ability to lock down the movement of money to a particular date, for example. So they are automatically paid at the point at which that good is realised. And I think that has a lot of similarities in insurance, actually.
I've heard far too many times in my long career, your cheque should be with you within 7 days. But actually, it was pretty much an arbitrary figure. So that kind of certainty that money will arrive with the customer at a given time and a shorter time frame, but in a reliable time frame, I think that's hugely powerful. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I think there's something else in that. We touched on financial inclusion. It's one thing when we eye roll because we have to wait 7 or 14 days because a small amount of money is taking a long time to come to us. But for some people, that's their lifeblood. Yeah. If you look at what's happened in the recent pandemic, SMEs died or survived based on whether they could get their funds. If you're a younger person or a person who maybe doesn't have work at that point in time and you're expecting a claims payment, waiting for it's not really an option. And your cost of living goes up if you don't have access to your money quickly. So I think there's a broader responsibility there also.
That's a huge social benefit, isn't it? And when we can make better products that actually create a better society as well, I think we're really in a sweet spot then. I think that's fantastic. Sure. That's brilliant. If this all works as you want it to, where will insurance payments be in 5 years' time? What's the perfect scenario for insurance and for you guys in 5 years' time?
I think the perfect scenario is that whomever the customer is, whether it's a global conglomerate or whether it's an individual, that they get to choose how they get paid And when the decision is made that they should be paid money from their insurance contract, it reaches them within reason almost instantaneously. That's the vision. And that's perfectly possible, notwithstanding legacy platforms. That's perfectly possible now. So within that time frame, that's what I would like to see happen. And I think that Mastercard can be part of that solution.
Definitely. And who are you looking to partner with, Ruth? What sectors are you looking to partner with? And is there a cultural best fit, or does that not matter?
I think the answer to that is we're interested in partnering with any insurance organisation. And I've been saying insurers as a sort of shorthand, but it's not just insurance organisations, it's startups, it's TPAs, it's all sorts of organisations in this space. And I think in terms of cultural fit, you can't innovate in a silo. I can't speak to one department and make huge change happen and look at how our technology and solutions like Mastercard Send can work on its own. It has to be more aligned. So size of organisation doesn't matter, but they have to be ready to make that change for sure.
Fantastic. Well, I'm certain there'll be a lot of organisations within the ILC community who will be very eager to talk to you. This is really exciting stuff and offers value on so many different levels, both financially, operationally, but most importantly to the customer. So I think there's some really exciting stuff in what you're doing, and the very best of luck with it, Ruth. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.